Do these scenarios pay pretty well then?
So I would say between like 3 to 10 grand.
Well, we have a question from Levi Beats. Levi wants to know if you've ever uploaded music or submitted music to these sync licensing platforms, and if
Yeah, so
so,
I've never used the platforms themselves, but I will say there's been two projects. For instance, the Hereditary. I don't know if any of you seen them. It's supposed to be like the scariest film of last year. I used to rap before all of this. That's what really got me into all this. And one of my songs where I'm rapping actually got placed in the film in the party scene, and that came through a sync house. I'm blanking on the name. They're in LA. But basically, my manager, when we came together, he sent out a bunch of just old music that I had, and fortunately, they were looking for a party tune, and it just happened. Also, another time, I'm from Nova Scotia, where it's like a really small community, but once a month, they have one week called Music Nova Scotia Week. And during that week, everybody that's into music kind of gets together, and I was able to meet. They're called Roadhouse Productions, I believe. So it's a really small, like, two or three individuals, small business, and they were able to place some of my songs in independent films as well too. So I haven't used any of the online platforms, but I would actually say, why don't you maybe look in your backyard? Because I was in, like I said, in Nova Scotia, like really small community, and there was people that were able to there get my stuff in some independent films, which paid like 2 or 3 grand. So if you can look around at, maybe there's, maybe you have a music week or something like that. And then also too, like, yeah, I kind of passed over uh, the middleman by having friends like Tyler and stuff, because I go directly to them. But the reason that I have Tyler's and people like that, they were growing the same way that I was growing, like, 2, 3, 4 years ago. So there's probably some individuals like that are shooting music videos and stuff like that in your hometown right now. And I would say, if you're interested in any of this, like, reach out to those individuals, see if they need some sound design, or like, it could be as small as, like, maybe there's like a fight scene in the beginning and they need some gunshots and stuff like that. Like, if you can provide that little bit of value, you never know, that person could go on to be the next big director in Hollywood, or who knows where they go, or maybe they do a Nike commercial or something like that. And when those things happen, they're going to be first to be like, oh, let's just hit up so and so. You have that direct connection, and then hopefully that's going to bring in, some more work, some more money, and more things that you can continue to leverage and build on your career. So I think you're muted there.
my bad. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the money element then. Um, do these scenarios pay pretty well then?
Yeah, from what I understand, and maybe you can help me here, is that they end up paying more than a rapper would. So I would say between like 3 to 10 grand um, per like sync, I would say. So they differ. Sometimes it's like, I've worked on projects where basically they just licensing the same way, like on BeatStars you would license a beat to a rapper. They're basically just licensing the music for a commercial or something like that. So pretty much they're just taking my music and using it. And for instance, I did a Reebok campaign with Tyler where that was the case, and like that was like for 5 grand, I think. Whereas like Hereditary, that was like the song again. They just were licensing it. That was like, I think, 3,500. Or like I did a project for Twitter this year, which I believe was for 7,500, and that one was like basically a work for hire, so they own the piece. So depending on the situation and what they want, it's kind of fallen in that range. So I would say, roughly, I've been able to get about 5 grand for a project or so. And if you can do a couple of those a month, like, obviously that's really good money. Whereas I know, at least from my producer friends, when I'm speaking to them, it's hard to get money out of labels. It comes X amount of months later, and everybody tries to, jank you around for your percentages and stuff. Whereas like a Twitter or somebody like that is not worried. Like, if anything, they're trying to spend so that they can get more budget for next year. So they're a bit more open and a bit more free to like your creativity, I've at least found. So yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I'd say 5 to 10 is pretty common,
Hmm.
or pretty standard for a major label placement. But those scenarios are going to be work for hire, whereas a sync is pretty much free money because you don't give up any rights.
Yeah.
But as far as just syncs versus placements are concerned, I've never heard any sync horror stories or licensing horror stories, but I've heard thousands of placement horror stories.
Yeah.
So it comes with the territory, but you're right. The politics aren't there in the sync game in the same way. I still think there are politics in the sync game because there are people who are protective of their territory. Very few people are rich off of syncs, and so they're monopolizing that.
A lot of the projects, even too, like with that stuff, it's like I think visuals always gets thought of first. So a lot of these projects end up coming to me like, oh, we need this in the next 24, 48 hours or whatever. And it was I feel like audio is almost an afterthought or whatever, which kind of gives me some more leverage to do the creative that I want and ask for the money that I want. And also I feel like I've worked with, some editors and some visual people, and they get a million revisions, whereas like I might only get one or two. So, sometimes that can be a blessing in disguise as well too.
Yeah. So switching gears, what led up to you scoring the Kylie Jenner birth video? That was also White Trash Tyler, right?
Yeah. So, honestly, it was just, he's really good at just going out and making something happen, which I will say, like, I've learned a lot more from him over the years of like, if you want something, sometimes you got to make it yourself. It's like so many situations don't happen because you're thinking someone's going to come knocking at your door, whereas like it should be the opposite. So yeah, that was something that he compiled all that footage. And when she saw it, she was like, we should put this out as like basically the video. And when that happened, it became, well, what's the music? And again, it's like kind of like that afterthought. It's like, oh, so focused on the visual and the best shots. And then it's like, what's the music? So we did that turnaround in I think it was about 48 hours. And it was like pretty long nights and stuff because we didn't want anybody to essentially, break the story or whatever. It was like a surprise or whatever. But yeah, we worked on that together, and I was able to do a bunch of different, I'm going to open up the project file because it's like the 1 year anniversary coming along. I might do like a little beat tutorial or something with it, but I think I did like 45 different versions of that, which is a lot over like 48 hours. So basically I came up with like that little, a little 16-bar piano version. And then as the story unfolded with his visual, I had to add in strings or, oh, it needs to be softer here because the baby's being born, or it needs to be happier here because everyone's happy. And so like, it kind of developed that way. But yeah, we work really well together, and he likes to kind of work with sound, and I know video pretty well. So it's easy for us to communicate that way between the two worlds. But yeah, I would actually, speaking on that, that is one thing that I have noticed with working on people is like a lot of people don't know the sound language that me and you might just like, you could be like, oh, just filter that out, and I would understand what you mean. So that is one area where if you're going to do this, have a little bit more leeway, understand that these individuals might not know all the ins and out of audio as well too.
So for that project, you and Tyler were not in the same room?
No, I was in Toronto.
Okay. So he was out in LA, you were in Toronto.
Yeah.
And he was the one that was basically requesting the revisions. It wasn't Kylie.
It was a bit of both. I think he was with her or something. And,
okay, I got it.
They were both like, oh, that's really great, but let's change up the piano part here or whatever. So it went through some different revisions, but finally in the end, it was able to come out. And I think last year it was the most viewed video of the year. Yeah.
So in terms of, obviously it's the most viewed video, there's money being generated. Mm-hmm. How do you work that out?
This one was like, me and him we just work together. Like all we care about is like basically the art. Like we're not bougie at all. We'll sleep on the floor, even though, you know what I mean? It's like, we're all about just making the best piece. So, I think it's like a year ago, so I can't tell you for sure. I think maybe he gave me like $500 or like, it wasn't really anything that we did for money. It was something that we did to set ourselves up for like future stuff. But the great thing about that, and I asked right off the bat, I was like, can I put this on iTunes and stuff? So I was able to put it on YouTube, put it on iTunes, and every single month I've been able to make recurring money, and I think I'll continue to do that. Also, people have licensed it out, like whatever network the Kardashians are under had to license it out. when people played it on, like, in Canada, we have SOCAN, and I remember getting that first SOCAN check and be like, what the hell, where'd all this money come from? And I looked, it was because like ET Canada and places like that played it. So yeah, there's ways. I think as long as we're smart as producers and stuff, there's a great opportunity to do some of these things as long as we have those systems in place where like we can, yeah, benefit off it that way.
Yeah, so that's another benefit of working with video is that no, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm imagining that nobody at any step in the process was asking that you give up your ownership of the composition, your ownership of the master. So because you own the composition, because you own the master, that means that if anyone does want to use that video, because your audio is a part of it, they have to pay. They have to defer to you.
Yeah, it made it into like, I'm blanking on the name. It's like my girlfriend's favorite like TV show. I forget the name of it, but it even made it in that. Like they licensed it for that or whatever. So yeah, because obviously a lot of eyes were on it. That's another thing too. Like I understand that whole Gary Vee approach of like more attention, more eyes on you, bring more opportunity and stuff. So yeah, as long as you're like smart enough to think about how you can do things after the fact, like, you know, I don't know, I could have made a course off of that. I don't know, there's a million different things I could have probably thought of that maybe I could use to like, you know, monetize per se. But anybody that is a producer, there's so many cool things that we do in our beats, like tape stops and filters, you know, like the 40 Drake filter and things like that. And these are all things that you can actually use when you're doing like the video stuff, you know, to make it sound like you're outside a club. That's the exact same sort of filter that you're using. Or, you know what I mean? There's so many cool things that we're already doing that we know that if we can take a beat and we can add some of those things, because let's just say if someone's like, here's a commercial, it's 30 seconds. They don't want you to just send a 3-minute beat, a 3-minute long beat. If you can take that 3-minute long beat and make it arc up and have the tape drop out or whatever it is, if you can do those extra small little things that we all know how to do, it can help you actually get some of those potential sync things and stuff. So,
and did you learn a lot from listening then? Because you didn't have experience with
and that's another thing too, is like it's so easy to go like, you know, Drake type beat and get a million tutorials, but there's not a lot for sound. And I think sound in music is still kind of like pretentious in the sense of like it's a, you know, a guy with a button on and he's like, you know, directing a big symphony, where it's like that's not the world that I come from, nor the world that I want to like conform to. So yeah, it's honestly just listening, but also just like trying new things. Like a lot of the things that I end up doing, I think they end up working because I'm so like hip hop or rap with it. It's like if a Nike's coming and they want like me and Tyler did like a Travis Scott for his shoe. We did a Jordan commercial, and like my first instinct was like, oh, it's Jordan, it's all about Houston, like let's chop and screw this. And so like I chopped and screwed it, and I added all these cool sound design like effects and stuff like that, and it worked, I think, really well. Like that's one of the projects from last year that I'm really proud of. I think it was really awesome because it spoke